What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the JT Sports Podcast. I'm your host, JT. Week 3 revealed some harsh truths that we have to unpack on this episode. If you are a fan of Florida, Clemson, Colorado, Tennessee, there are truths that you're not going to like, you're not going to want to hear, but they're just so glaring at this point that we have no choice but to unpack them and break them down. Why has Tennessee gone 9 years straight without beating Georgia? Billy Napier and DJ Lagway had a disastrous night at Baton Rouge. What does it mean for the rest of Florida season? Billy Napier's future as head coach, and how good is DJ Lagway actually? Colorado, Deion Sanders is making some irrational decisions that's going to force this program to regress this year. Clemson and Georgia Tech were in an absolute brawl, and Clemson came on a losing end of it. Dabo Swinney was talking up Clemson a lot at the end of last season. They returned so many talented players, one of the best coaching staffs in America. You still Tom Allen from Penn State. In spite of everything that Clemson has coming back, they haven't played up to expectations. What's up with that? Notre Dame, they're 0-2 to start this season after losing to Texas A&M. I think it's time that they do what we all been screaming at them to do for a very long time. Texas A&M just reinforced this. If you live, eat, breathe, sleep football, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Check us out, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from. Links are in the description and pinned comment section down below. Give us a 5-star review if you love the NFL and college football just as much as I do. We have you covered 365 days, 24/7, talking to NFL and college football. Let's dive into it. Florida only lost 20-10 last night to LSU in spite of DJ Lagway tossing up 5 interceptions. DJ Lagway, like Arch Manning, had historic levels of hype this offseason. He was talked up to be the new messiah of Florida football. Like he was the second coming of Tim Tebow. Had a very good true freshman campaign. Showed a lot of promise in those upset wins that Florida had against LSU, Ole Miss late during last season. Made it seem like it was finally feasible to have some faith in Billy Napier. Well, Year 2, DJ Lagway has looked worse than Anthony Richardson. He's been arguably the worst quarterback in all of college football. Struggled against USF. He threw 5 gifts to LSU's defense last night. At this point, we have to admit that DJ Lagway is nowhere as good as the player that he was hyped up to be. And I don't even know if DJ Lagway will be as good as the player that we thought he was going to be when he was coming out of high school because of Billy Napier's poor development. Billy Napier, with how bad his play calling is, you're not doing a young quarterback like DJ Lagway any favors. DJ Lagway threw 5 interceptions, and Jaden Ball, arguably the second best player on Florida's offense, only had 10 touches despite averaging 4.6 yards per carry. If your quarterback is struggling on the road, you don't help them by throwing the football nearly 50 times. You run the ball. You ease them into the game. But Billy Napier, with his poor play calling, he has set DJ Lagway up for failure. DJ Lagway struggling is not on him. It has everything to do on Billy Napier. His stubbornness to hire an offensive coordinator, continuing to call plays, is hurting DJ Lagway's development, and it's holding back this football program. Billy Napier should be fired. He should have his key card access to Florida's facilities revoked right now. Florida got embarrassed on national television. Florida is not as bad as what they looked against LSU on Saturday night. This is one of the most talented offenses in the SEC. They have phenomenal true freshmen. They have a top 10 offensive line led by an All-American center, great running backs. Their defense is also good as well. So Florida is a lot better than what they look like against LSU, especially offensively. But why isn't Florida playing up to the level of potential that they have? Simple. Because Billy Napier doesn't know how to drive the Lamborghini. Billy Napier can have all the talent in the world, but with his Sunbelt play calling, he's not going to be able to get the most out of it. Florida is going to disappoint once again this season, despite having the most talented team that they've had in a very long time, because they are poorly coached. If Dan Mullen had this year's Florida's team, they will win the SEC. Dan Mullen, say what you want to about his poor recruiting. This dude was a football savant. X's and O's was his thing. Just give him the team. This year's Florida team, with Dan Mullen calling the plays, would have cooked. Are you kidding me? LSU would have got fried. Dan Mullen with a DJ Lagway, a top 10 offensive line, and all this talent at running back and receiver, this dude would have had an all-you-can-eat buffet. He wouldn't have known what to do with himself with the amount of riches that he would have. But you have Sunbelt Billy, better recruiter than Dan Mullen. But it doesn't matter how well you can recruit and develop talent if you're not putting these players in positions to succeed, which is what Billy Napier is not doing at Florida. And DJ Lagway, he's just not going to be the player that he was hyped up to be. He can still be very good, but when you tell me somebody's a dynamic quarterback, I think Lamar Jackson and Jaden Daniels. When you bring up DJ Lagway and dynamic quarterback, they don't correlate. DJ Lagway is a more athletic Jameis Winston. He has a little bit of wiggle, but he's not dynamic running the ball like a Lenore Sellers. He has a good arm, not a great arm. He's a good quarterback. And he doesn't look good right now because Billy Napier's poor play calling is compromising him. You only give Jaden Ball, who is averaging nearly 5 yards per carry, 10 attempts, in spite of your quarterback throwing out Christmas presents, and you don't want to help the brother out when he's obviously rattled on the road. I don't know what Billy Napier was telling DJ Lagway on the sideline after every pick that he threw, but I hope he was apologizing to him after every single one, saying, I'm sorry, DJ. You deserve better than me as your head coach because I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to get the most out of you. I don't know how to properly develop you to live up to your full potential. All I've done is underachieve at Florida, and I'm failing you. And I'm going to cause you to underachieve because I'm just an underachieving coach that Florida doesn't want to fire. The main reason why Billy Napier even was given a 4th season this year was because of how well Florida played during the second half of last year. All of the outstanding young players that Florida has their NIL money put into, they played great under Billy Napier in 2024. They're not looking so great right now. So if what gave Billy Napier a 4th season isn't looking so hot, he deserves his access to Florida's facilities revoked. Georgia 44, Tennessee 41. It's the final in Knoxville. Tennessee has now lost 9 consecutive straight to the Dogs. Everything that Tennessee needed to go their way to win this game happened and then some. Tennessee had this game played in their style. A shootout is right up Tennessee's alley. If you're telling me that Tennessee's in a game where they have to put up 40 points to win, I would say on a scale of 1 through 10, 9 out of 10, I'm confident Tennessee's winning. Tennessee is built to win shootouts. Great receivers. Joey Aguilar looks vastly superior than Nico Iamaleava. This is the best I've seen Tennessee's offense ever look against Kirby Smart's defense, and yet they still couldn't get it done because their defense was unable to slow down Georgia's offense. The biggest question with Georgia entering this season was Gunnar Stockton. How good was he going to be? And a lot of you, be honest, you doubted Gunnar Stockton's ability to lead Georgia to another national championship. But like Stetson Bennett, he was doubted as well. And he exceeded expectations. Gunnar Stockton, like Stetson Bennett, has exceeded expectations. Gunnar Stockton, with how well he played against Tennessee, Georgia can win a national championship with him. The last 3 national championship winning quarterbacks have not been elite. Will Howard, he was good, not great. J.J. McCarthy was an elite handoff merchant. And Stetson Bennett was a walk-on. So you don't need to have outstanding quarterback play to win a national championship. Gunnar Stockton is a Honda McCord. Kirby Smart can win with a Honda McCord. As long as Gunnar Stockton gets Georgia from point A to point B, that's all that matters. And this offense looks more explosive with Gunnar Stockton at the helm at quarterback. Now, he has receivers that can actually catch the freaking football, unlike what he did last year in his first start against Notre Dame when he had a receiving core that led the nation in drops. You felt Zachariah's presence immediately in this game. He had a big touchdown, which turned the momentum in Georgia's favor. Zachariah Branch was one of the biggest transfer portal pickups that any team made this offseason. Zachariah Branch has the ability to be the most explosive football player in America. He's dynamic after the catch. He's really wiggly, has Olympic-like speed. It didn't work out at USC for some reason. I don't know why an offensive mind with the genius of Lincoln Riley was unable to find a way to utilize somebody like Zachariah Branch. But Mike Bobo, for all the criticism that he has received these last 9 months, he's cracked the sauce with Zachariah Branch. This dude knows how to get Zachariah Branch the ball. All you got to do is get Zachariah Branch the ball in space, and good things happen. Tennessee can't beat Georgia for the simple fact that their defense can never get stops when it matters against this team. Why? Because their offense doesn't do them any favors. When your offense is getting the plays in within 5-10 seconds, you on average are probably going to have a minute or two that you have the ball on offense, which means that the defense, they're going to get winded, they're going to get fatigued a lot faster than if you were running a normal paced offense. And when you're going up against Kirby Smart in Georgia, it's a 4-quarter game. Tennessee even acknowledged this. They were ready for this game to go into overtime. They were ready for this to be a close, hard-fought game. And they still lost despite this game being played on their terms. We have home field advantage, and this is a shootout. We're going to win. And you lost because you didn't have enough gas in the end to beat Georgia, despite you actually being able to take it the distance with Kirby Smart and the Dogs. You didn't win the game because you just ran out of gas. You can't beat Georgia by praying that your field goal kicker makes it. You can't give Georgia any opportunity to climb back into the game. Elite teams have something that I call the trapdoor ability. No matter how poorly they play or how bad things look for them, if you give them any opportunity to creep back into the game, like a missed field goal or a costly turnover in the red zone, if you don't cut their head off, they're going to beat you. You can't give Georgia any room to escape. And Tennessee, they did it in this game. And in the past, the same thing has kind of happened. Tennessee would get out to a fast start like Joy Aguilar did in this game. He was brilliant. Had like 200 yards, no incompletions to end the first quarter. But then right after that, he got cold. Kirby Smart figured him out. In the past, Tennessee has gotten out the hot starts, but they were unable to maintain that momentum. And then sometimes you had games when Tennessee's offense was just completely boxed, and you were asking yourself, is Tennessee losing to Georgia because of their offensive scheme? Is their scheme too gimmicky to have success to beat a Kirby Smart coach Georgia team who's the best defensive mastermind in the sport at the moment? Because Kirby Smart, he just knows how to figure out this Tennessee offense. Now, every once in a while, Tennessee offensively will throw a few new wrinkles at him that he'll have to adjust to. But Tennessee, maybe they just still don't have the talent to be an elite team. To beat Georgia, you have to be an elite team, and Tennessee's still lacking in that department. Their recruiting is great, but not exceptional like Georgia's. Georgia has had a top 3 recruiting class for over the last half a decade. Tennessee isn't recruiting on that level. This is probably the best performance that Tennessee will ever have against a Kirby Smart-led defense. And they still couldn't capitalize off it because their offense hurts their defense. Their defense can never get big stops. Kirby Smart's defense was. Despite the Gunnar Stockton fumble, Kirby Smart and his team was still able to prevail. The defense did have its moments. The defense played far from perfect, but it's not about having perfect performances. Playing great defense is not about holding the team to 0 points, holding the team to under 200 yards. Playing great defense is just about, can you get off the field and make the necessary plays in big moments and get the ball back to your offense? Can you win the game? And Tennessee's defense did that. They did it in overtime. They did it several times throughout this game with the Joy Aguilar interceptions. So Georgia, defensively, they're just too much for the offense that Tennessee likes to run. Tennessee's offense is just too simplistic for Kirby Smart to lose to. And until they change their strategy, instead of trying to beat Georgia, airing the football out, you got to get more physical. You have to be able to run the football a lot more effectively if you're Tennessee, if you ever hope to beat Georgia. If you can't run the football and you're just going to say, we're going to beat Georgia by throwing the ball 50, 60 times, and we're going to tire out our defense, you're just making it easier for Georgia. There's a philosophy issue and a schematic issue with Tennessee that it's just hurting them in this game against Georgia. Notre Dame just suffered their second loss of the season to Texas A&M. This loss isn't about Notre Dame being 0-2. This loss is reaffirming us something that we've been screaming at Notre Dame to do for a very long time, and that's join the damn conference. With Notre Dame losing to Texas A&M, their playoff hopes are in the drain, in the garbage. You have no shot of getting to the college football playoffs this year. Your margin for error was already razor thin entering this season. You don't play in the conference. So when you create your own schedule, if you don't have enough quality opponents to overcome a few hiccups, you're going to handicap your chances getting into the dance. And that's what Notre Dame did this season. They front loaded their first two games with Miami and Texas A&M. You're supposed to do that, but you also have to win them. And these are the only two ranked games that Notre Dame has on their schedule this season at the moment. Maybe USC ends up being really good and they can be a ranked game. And if you beat them, it'll be a good enough resume builder to still get you into the playoffs in spite of two losses. There's nothing wrong with having a two-loss team in the playoffs, especially Notre Dame. The issue is Notre Dame being an independent hurts their playoff chances every season because they always give themselves a small margin of error. If you don't have about 5 or 6 quality teams on your schedule, then you have to be nearly flawless. 2 losses won't get you into the playoffs being Notre Dame. But if you played in the SEC, then you having 2 losses wouldn't be the end of your season because you can still win your conference, get into the conference championship game, and if you win it, you get that automatic spot into the dance. And even if you don't win your conference championship game, then let's say Notre Dame is a 9-3 team in the SEC. They have 2 losses, but they also have a few ranked wins. That will be able to help you overcome your early season losses. You can overcome early season losses if you have a strong schedule. That's why teams in the SEC aren't afraid to schedule big out-of-conference opponents early during the season, because even if they slip up, they know that their conference schedule is loaded with enough ranked teams that they can rebuild up their resume to make it into the playoffs. With 2-3 losses, you still are going to have a fair shot at getting in with how deep the SEC is as a conference. Same thing with the Big Ten. If Notre Dame was in the Big Ten or in the conference right now, then their season wouldn't be over. But with them refusing to get rid of their independence, they're hurting their playoff chances because now your margin for error is so thin that if you don't have a lot of quality opponents on your schedule, then you got to beat the ones that you do play. And if you don't, then your season ends early, like how it has for Notre Dame. And even with a little bit of chaos, Notre Dame probably still won't get in. You need a lot to go right for you. Hell, even you getting in with 1 loss last year, despite how well you played after the Northern Illinois loss, you could still make the argument that if it wasn't for the Alabama and Ole Miss upsets and a few things that happened ahead of Notre Dame, maybe they don't get in. You know, we didn't really talk about that due to all the chaos that happened late during the season that hurt the SEC's playoff teams. But Notre Dame should just join the conference at this point. You get more money being in the conference, and it helps you get into the playoffs more consistently being in the conference due to you getting that automatic spot if you win your conference, which helps you override a few early season losses or a few upset losses. Clemson easily is the biggest disappointment in college football so far. Dabo Swinney, after Clemson lost in the first round of the playoffs last season, he expected for this team to be in playoff contention. They had a roster that on paper coming into this season looked like it was national championship worthy. You also stole Tom Allen from Penn State. You got him, Garrett Riley, as your offensive coordinator. That's one of the best coordinator duos in America. So with the amount of talent that Clemson has, with how great their coaching staff is, and with the Dabo Swinney impact This should be a team that looks like a national championship contender. However, that's far from the case after Clemson's 24-21 road loss to Georgia Tech. Clemson just doesn't look like they're going to be the team that they were advertised to be entering this season. Their defensive line supposedly supposed to be the best in all of college football, with two potential top 10 picks in Peter Woods and TJ Parker. Where have those guys been? Where's all of this talent that Clemson has on the defense that's supposed to get drafted high next year? Where's the Cade Klubnik that was throwing seeds against Texas in the playoffs last year? Nowhere to be found. Clemson has the talent to compete for a national championship, but they're not playing like it. They're starting this season really sluggish. Can they turn around like how they did last year? Of course, but even last year, I can't really say that they turned it around. They just had a little bit of luck in the ACC championship with that kickoff and the kicker with an extraordinary leg. Really, they weren't a playoff team, but they got in because of the technicalities of expansion. Now this year, with the ACC being a lot more competitive, Georgia Tech is really good. Florida State is back. Miami looks to be a legit contender this year with them improving their defense. The ACC is no longer a walk in the park for Clemson. And even when it was, Clemson was still having slip-ups. The quarterback play from Cade Klubnik has not been what was expected. He has looked really timid. He hasn't looked comfortable in the pocket. And that's mainly due to Clemson's offensive line somehow regressing in spite of them returning a good amount of experience. Dabo Swinney sold checks that Clemson can't cash this year. He thought this was going to be a team that could get Clemson back in the forefront of college football, competing for a national championship. Clemson is not a national championship contender. And every year, there's a preseason top 10 team that finishes the season unranked. Clemson's going to be that team. Dabo Swinney, the game has passed him by. He adapted somewhat. He utilized the transfer portal, got a few players out of there, but he kind of was still mocking you. He still was laughing at it because Clemson could definitely have used a few offensive linemen out of the transfer portal, not just a defensive lineman and a wide receiver. The ACC is not the walk in the park that it was made out to be before this season started. This conference is a lot deeper than what it's been in years past, especially when Miami and Florida State look to be really good teams. This team is not playing up to the level of talent that they have on paper. If there was a paper national championship, Clemson and Penn State would have played for it this offseason. Nobody won the offseason more than those two teams in terms of the amount of hype that they received. And I thought for a while that Cade Klubnik was always overrated, but he won me over with how well he played against SMU and on the road against Texas in that playoff game. He was throwing some absolute seeds. Would you even draft Cade Klubnik in the first round if you're an NFL general manager? I wouldn't. Cade Klubnik just doesn't look comfortable. He's not the kind of quarterback that can elevate a franchise. He can't overcome bad offensive line play. Joe Burrow does it. Lamar does it. That's what an elite quarterback's supposed to do. Elevate his team in spite of certain limitations. That's what a first-round pick at quarterback looks like, at least to me. It's not all Cade Klubnik's fault, though. Dabo Swinney is not getting the most out of the talent that he has on this year's Clemson team. You can't blame NIL and the transfer portal for Clemson being what it is when Dabo Swinney just refuses to use it. Clemson has NIL money. They have the ability to pretty much get the majority of any of the best players out of the transfer portal. But they refuse to do so because Dabo Swinney has this dinosaur fossil mentality of he's going to do it his way. And his way gets your gut punched against Georgia Tech. And his way has caused him to make checks that Clemson won't be able to cash this year. We thought Clemson was going to be a playoff team. Dabo Swinney, after they lost to Texas, he had a big grin on his face saying that, oh, we'll be back. This is a young team. Well, the amount of talent that you have from last year's team that's back this year, where is it? It's nowhere to be found. Don't let Alabama losing to Florida State make you forget that this is still the most talented team in college football. Alabama has the highest blue chip ratio in America. They have the most 5 and 4 stars on their team than anybody else. And they play like it in their dominant 38-14 win over Wisconsin. Alabama showed how dominant and truly scary this team is when they're playing their A-plus football. Kalen DeBoer is a great coach. His issue is he never has Alabama ready to play against the teams that they're expected to blow out. But he always has Alabama up for the games that are circled on the calendar before the season starts. This was an Alabama team that was prepared. They were well coached. They were disciplined. There were no blown coverages. There were no missed assignments. The only big mistake that Alabama had in this game that they made was when they allowed Wisconsin to take a kickoff back for 6. The coverage could have been a lot better on that. That was it. Alabama, in spite of their week 1 loss to Florida State, they can still win a national championship. I still believe that they will win the SEC. With how they just obliterated Wisconsin, Ty Simpson was absolutely unconscious, 4 touchdowns. He was throwing passes against Wisconsin's defense like he was throwing passes against air. Ty Simpson could win a Heisman Trophy this year. The personnel that he has around him at receiver, the offensive line, that's good as any other teams in America. So Ty Simpson has a perfect situation with the talent he's surrounded by, with what he's throwing to at receiver, that he should put up prolific numbers. Ty Simpson should look a lot this year like how Mac Jones did in 2020. His receivers that he was throwing to were too good not for him not to go off. And you can say the same for Ty Simpson this year. Jeremy Bernard could be a first-round pick next year. He's one of the best receivers in America. We already know about Ryan Williams. Ryan Williams is just as good as Ryan Williams. What he can do after the catch, his acceleration is unmatched. His route running is also a lot better than Jeremiah Smith's. But you haven't realized how good Ryan Williams is and just how much he is on the same level as a Jeremiah Smith due to the inconsistent quarterback play that he got last year out of Jalen Milroe. Well, this season, Ty Simpson is showing everybody how good Ryan Williams is and how small the gap is between him and Jeremiah Smith, and why there really isn't a gap between the two at all. With the defense that Alabama has, that secondary, oh my goodness. That secondary that Alabama has is going to be hard to throw on. There aren't too many teams that have 3 great receivers. So when you're going up against an Alabama team that has 3 shutdown corners, along with 2 very good safeties, you got one of the best defenses in college football. Alabama still is the best team in America in terms of the amount of talent that they have on their roster and how scary of a team they are to go up against when they're playing their A-plus game, when everything's going right for Alabama and they're not kicking themselves in the leg, they're not shooting themselves in the foot. they're the best team in college football, hands down. And we saw that against Wisconsin. Just a clear obliteration. This was a huge W for the SEC in terms of bragging rights over the other conferences. FSU got one up on you. Now you get one on the Big Ten. Now, Wisconsin isn't a good team by any stretch of imagination. They had their backup quarterback out there. They had several injuries that they were dealing with. So it's not like Alabama truly got tested, but this was a game that, you expected Alabama to dominate, and they did that. It somewhat was a big game. It was your first actual opponent since you lost to Florida State. Now they got Georgia in 2 weeks. I like Alabama. And when they win that game over Georgia, then everybody else is going to hop back on the Alabama wagon. Alabama is a more talented team than what Georgia is this year. I don't see Georgia beating Alabama. Kirby Smart goes up 2-0 over Kirby Smart. And when Alabama beats Georgia in 2 weeks, everybody else is going to hop back on the Alabama bandwagon. Everybody's going to be confident again that Alabama will make the playoffs, that they can win the SEC, possibly compete for the national championship. Against Wisconsin, they proved why they had the hype that they got entering this season. We're 3 games into the post-Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders era at Colorado, and things aren't really looking good right now. Not due to Colorado lacking talent. Colorado has a talented enough team to where they should be a 7-win team at worst this year. Their defensive line still is really good. They got a good pass rush. They can get after the quarterback. Their offensive line has somewhat improved. And the receivers are just as good as anybody else's receiving room in the Big 12. Deion Sanders has an eye for great receivers. But Deion doesn't have an eye for handling Colorado's current quarterback predicament. So he started Caden Salter week 1 against Georgia Tech. He benches him because he just wasn't cutting it for him. And he ends up putting in Ryan Staub, who Ryan Staub never really knew too much about this dude other than he was Shedeur Sanders' backup, and he's been with Deion ever since he first took the Colorado job. So he gives Ryan Staub an opportunity after how well he played against Delaware, which I say was justified. And Ryan Staub didn't play good against Houston. If Caden Salter started against Houston, Colorado would have won that game. What Colorado is missing on offense that Deion can't see is the ability to run the football, the ability to be multifaceted offensively. Caden Salter, with what he can do running the football, defenses have to account for that, which opens up opportunities for the running backs to get going. Because if you key in on Caden Salters, then you have to worry about those running backs also. Then once you get the ground game going, your passing attack is more efficient. Caden Salter, with a new team that's transitioning over with a new offense, because you're not running the same offense this year that you were with Shedeur, there were going to be some inconsistencies early. Caden Salter having early season struggles was expected. He's with a bunch of guys that he's unfamiliar with, that he doesn't really know too much about. On top of that, you have a team that's transitioning in terms of their philosophy on offense being less air raid, less pass-centric, and more balanced. So Colorado doesn't even really know what their identity is without Shedeur Sanders. So you have to give Caden Salter a little bit of a leash. And with his upside, due to what he can do with his legs, he's worth giving another opportunity to. Why is Ryan Staub worthy of giving a longer leash than what Caden Salters was given? When Caden Salter is the more talented of the two players. And it's evident that when Caden Salter is in Colorado's offense is a lot more efficient. They put up 20 points against Georgia Tech. It's not as if they put up 3 or put up a donut on the scoreboard. They had an opportunity to win that game. He missed a few throws, but it's week 1. And Deion can't throw out Julian Lewis. He can't put Juju out there this early because if Juju struggles, then it'll ruin his confidence. If Deion throws out Juju and he struggles, he'll hit the portal. You'll ruin his confidence. Similar situation happened with Dante Moore his true freshman season at UCLA with Chip Kelly. He struggled, got benched, lost his confidence, transfers to Oregon, sits for a year behind Dylan Gabriel, and he's balling out now. It's best if Juju doesn't play for Colorado this year. This isn't really a situation that's setting Juju up for success, especially if you have Pat Shurmur still calling the plays. Deion Sanders sticking with Pat Shurmur as his offensive coordinator is going to be the downfall of Colorado this year. He never should have kept Pat Shurmur around. The only reason Pat Shurmur looked good calling plays was due to Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter. When you have 2 elite players, it elevates the play caller. If you have 2 great players, then it makes you look better than what you actually are as an offensive coordinator. Pat Shurmur, if you look at his history being the OC and the play caller in the NFL, he hasn't really had a lot of success. But I gave Deion Sanders the benefit of a doubt, bringing back Pat Shurmur due to how well his defensive coordinator hire and hiring Warren Sapp panned out for Colorado in them last season. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, Deion has a good eye when it comes to finding good coaches, good coordinators. Well, you struck out with Pat Shurmur. Pat Shurmur is just as big of a problem for Colorado this year as what the quarterback play is. And the quarterback play really isn't that bad. It's really just the predictable play calling. All of the bubble screens, the short passes, the unwillingness to run the ball a lot more. You know, if Kaden Salter had a more creative offensive mind, then he would still be Colorado's starting quarterback. It's funny how Hugh Freeze was the guy who had Kaden Salter playing great football when he was at Liberty. And as soon as Hugh Freeze left, that's when Kaden Salter started struggling. I'm just saying, like, if you are Deion Sanders, you cannot continue to allow your irrational decisions to jam up Colorado's offense. He never should have benched Kaden Salter. It's only week 1. Benching Kaden Salter after 1 game is like quitting a Madden game after you throw an interception on the second play. You have to be patient. Certain things take time. And Deion has so much potential that he can't see in this Colorado team because he wants to be irrational with this quarterback predicament. It's going to be disappointing to see this Colorado team fall short of what they are capable of. Because Kaden Salter, I do believe, gives Colorado the best shot to win this year. He's more dynamic. He's a more talented quarterback. Ryan Staub, he's like a Rudy story that Deion Sanders wants to come true, but it won't. Because Ryan Staub just doesn't have the physical traits that Kaden Salter has. Kaden Salter can take over games. Ryan Staub really can't. When Kaden Salter is on, who's stopping Colorado? Colorado changed quarterbacks and still is getting the same result that they did when they stuck with Kaden Salter in week 1. A loss. So you might as well go with the more talented of the 2 quarterbacks. Deion Sanders made a really irrational decision, benching Kaden Salter for Ryan Staub in hopes of getting his Rudy story. He loves the underdog. He roots for the underdog because at one point he was the underdog But Deion, you are an underdog with world-class athleticism. Ryan Staub is not the underdog that possesses the physical traits that you did. Kaden Salter is a great athlete, though. He can extend plays. He can add an element to Colorado's offense that they no longer have for Ryan Staub. With Deion benching Kaden Salter, he got Colorado's rushing attack right back to what it was the previous few seasons. Non-existent. Kaden Salter, with him at quarterback, it makes your offense versatile. You can run and pass. Without him, your offense is just a one-trick pony, and you don't have the quarterback play passing the ball like you did with Shedeur to beat teams throwing 40, 50 times a game. This just isn't going to work. Deion has to go back to Kaden Salter.